Now I'm going to share my screen. All right, so today we're going to be talking about ScreenPal video. So this is part of the Fall into Fall and Summer 2 workshop series. And so we're going to be talking about planning your video, preparing materials that you would then use in your video, actually recording it, doing some basic edits, adding quizzing if that's something that you'd be interested in. It can be very low stakes quizzing, kind of check for understanding kind of stuff, and we'll talk about some of the applications of that. And then how to share that content with your students and then grade if you are doing any of the quizzing options. So everything that you do in your course starts with a little bit of planning. So the first thing you want to look at is alignment. So how does the content that you're creating work with the outcomes and objectives that you have for your course? So you have at the course level or at the unit level something that you want your students to be able to do once they've completed that section of the course. And your video is going to be one of the tools to help the students be able to do that. And usually the flow of it is you have an idea, a concept that becomes your outcome. So your students will be able to. And then in the middle, you have like the content, the meat and potatoes of what you're teaching your students. So that may be readings, that may be interacting with you, that may be watching the video. And then you have an assessment. So the assessment is where you check that the students meet the learning outcomes. So it kind of comes as a full circle. And with ScreenPal, you can put into one package the video and the assessment. So if you wanted to use quizzing, you can have the video and the assessment at the same time. And then you have all your other course materials that are packaged in there as well. And so some of those may be more high stakes assessments, or they may be discussion boards, or they may be other resources that your students are interacting with. So first question with video is, what is the ideal length? So what do you think? What would be a good length for a video?
I think it's just no longer than 5 minutes. I could be wrong.
You're spot on. There are studies that show that attentions peak right around 6 minutes and then drop down after that. But there's nothing to say that you can't have multiple videos. So you have your videos that really chunk up the content, make it into bite-sized pieces, and then give students something to interact with. So whether that's interacting with the content right in the video or interacting with something after the video. So maybe they take a quiz afterwards, or maybe they watch the video and then they engage with the discussion board, or maybe they watch the video and then they start working on a project or on a paper that is based on the video. And in preparing your content for the video, you want to balance the way that students are perceiving information. So students may receive visual information. So if you have slides, if you have images, if you have text, anything like that. So the visuals and the text, and then the audio, so what you're telling your students. And all of that information has to be processed by the students' brains. And so if there's a lot of information that is all being presented at the same time, that creates a lot of cognitive load. So you want to balance the visuals, the text, and the audio. And the visuals can enhance the text. The audio is a description of the visuals and usually a voice over what the text is. You don't want to have students having to read something and listen to something at the same time when it's not the same thing, because that multitasking is very hard or practically impossible. It's not something that works well in terms of student learning. So in providing for knowledge and providing for information for your students in the video content, you want to activate any prior knowledge that they may have. So if you're a couple units into your course, this may be activating something that they've already learned in your course. So if you're in unit 3, maybe you're reminding them of something that you covered in unit 2. If you're in unit 10, maybe you're making an arc to something that they started with early on in the semester. It may be something that they learned in a prerequisite course, or it may be something that they're bringing in from their personal lives, from past experiences, from job settings, from other lived experiences that they have that connect with the content that you're teaching. So in activating prior knowledge, some of your students are going to have the same prior knowledge, because if it's something that you taught them in the course, then that's going to be shared prior knowledge. Whereas if you're activating some of the prior knowledge that's coming from jobs or lived experiences, then that's going to be different for each student. And to help them activate that prior knowledge, you may ask them questions, that kind of reflection, building in time for reflection helps them connect the learning that they're doing in your current video, in your current unit of study, with any of the prior studies, and then integrating it with learning activities. So integrating the video content with other activities in the course, whether that's group work, individual work, discussions, projects, whatever it may be. All right, so any questions about kind of getting into the planning, or what thoughts did that bring up for you?
Well, what I'm hoping to do is I find it when I give them an assignment, um, I want to be able to talk about the assignment without writing about it. Because what I like to do is just throw them a little bit off of their norm. For instance, there's one about multiple husbands, where a particular society, the woman will marry brothers. And I want them to think as a sociologist. And I did it last semester, wrote out something. And the first thing I would get on most of my replies were, I could never do this. And that's not what I want. I don't want you to think about it. And I tried to explain that, but I didn't do it well enough in the words that I wrote. So I'm hoping by looking at me, seeing my facial expressions and my hands, because I'm Italian, they'll get a better sense of what I want them to do. I want them to be sociologists at that point, out there looking at this brand new society. It may be small and maybe limited and going away, but I just want to shake them up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think having that personal connection is just activates a different kind of learning that
Right.
may be really valuable for what you're trying to do. All right, so you did some planning, and now you're ready to prepare some content. So the content that you prepare may come from a variety of sources. So you may build out slides. Those slides may be in PowerPoint, they may be in Google Slides. It may be looking at a website. So if there's a website that's relevant to your field, you may actually just be talking while you're walking through the website. Maybe they have to do a project based on the website, or maybe it's just that website is being used as a resource. And there's a whiteboard feature that you can use. So if you wanted to draw anything out, if there was anything like that, so you can essentially do that within PowerPoint or within Google Slides, where you just pull up a blank slide and then use some of the annotation tools within that, or you can use some of the tools that are within ScreenPal to create content that is more on the fly kind of creation rather than pre-created slides. And then also if there's any softwares that your students are using, so that may be just a library database is an example of something that students would use that may be helpful to have that tool or that guidance, or it may be more structured software like using something like Excel. So with any of the content that you prepare, you want to keep accessibility in mind. So accessibility relates to students who may have certain barriers to how they perceive information, still being able to interact with your content. So if you're providing images, you want to have alternative text on those images. So alternative text describes what the meaning of the image is in a text-based form, so that if students visually can't perceive the image, they can still get the information from the image. If you're doing anything with color, being aware that some students may be printing out your materials in black and white, they may be in very bright environments where perceiving color with glare can be very hard, or they may have color blindness that makes it hard to differentiate color. So if you're having any kind of diagrams or charts that rely on color, providing alternative ways to convey that information so that you're not relying on color, and also minimizing anything that could be a distraction to the visuals, so background images or watermarks. And then, since we're talking about video, when you're recording the video, right away verbalizing any of the visual elements will preclude the need for adding that later on. So when you have visuals, when you record the audio for your slides, you talk through the text that's on your slides, you describe the visuals that are there, and so then somebody could, even if they close their eyes, they could still listen to your recording and be able to learn from it and get meaning from it, whether they are able to visually perceive the information or not. And then the same thing with text. You want your text to be high contrast, so whether that's black on white, a bright yellow on a dark blue, so high contrast between your text and the background of the slides. Using fairly large text. A lot of students are watching videos on very, very small devices, on phones. And so having text that's going to be easy to read even on a small device. So 24 points or higher. And I find that using large text is actually really helpful to me because it forces me to reduce the amount of information that is on each slide. And if yeah, go ahead.
Please, when I do my course, I've been doing it in 10-point Arial. Should I be actually going up to 12-point or higher?
Yeah, 10 points is very, very small.
Okay.
So 11 is kind of the minimum, 12 is better. So this is like text within Blackboard or text in Microsoft Word?
No, it's text within Blackboard. So really do 12-point.
Yeah, that would make it easier for your students.
Okay.
Yep, and then also using fonts that don't have embellishments on the letters, so sans serif
No, I'm
fonts.
an Arial person.
Arial is great. Arial is standard and it gets the job done because basically the cleaner the letter, the easier it is
Right.
to read. Some of the typefaces like Times New Roman come from
Well,
publishing, and may work well for newspapers, but for particularly for on-screen text, Arial, great choice. And then there's ways for you to check for accessibility, both in PowerPoint and in Google Slides. There is the option to check for accessibility. In PowerPoint, it's under the Review tab. There's a Check Accessibility button. And then in Google Slides, we have an extension called Grackle Slides that is paid for by Stick, and it allows for you to identify any of the common accessibility concerns and also guides you through improving on the accessibility. These are both automated algorithms. They're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be a really good start to check through. So like if you add a whole bunch of images and you haven't had a chance to go through and add alternative text, it's a really great way to find all your images and then go through and add your alternative text.
Okay.
So then you have your slides, you have your visuals, you have your text. Now it's time to prepare for any of the audio that you're going to add. It's going to be really helpful to you to create either an outline or a full script. That it really depends on how you work, whether you want to just do it in bullet point form for yourself or write it out in full sentences. I find that I tend to kind of speak off the cuff more, so I just make myself some notes of what I'm gonna say, and then I go through and record video. When I talk with Kyle about how she records video, she tends to write it out in full
Yeah,
sentences.
no.
And and you know, it's a very individual process. Slide notes is a great place to add that information, because then that also, if you do share those slides with the students as an additional resource, then those notes again are available to them as a study guide outside of the video that you may be providing to your students. All right. How does that feel?
Good.
Good. All right. So then I think we're ready to get into the recording bit. So to record, think of your workspace as your studio. So you said that you want to have that human connection. You want students to be able to see you, to be able to see that you have facial expressions, that you're talking about certain topics. So you're probably going to be turning on your webcam and keeping it on. You have the option of recording just your webcam, so it's just you having a conversation with the students, or you can have additional materials like slides or websites, and then you're kind of like the talking head in the corner.
Yeah, I think mostly it's going to be just me talking and then them going. Maybe I'll show the assignment and then I'll talk about it and what I want from them and what I don't want from them.
Right, and there's a tool in ScreenPal called Storyboard that lets you create one project out of several pieces. And so if you wanted to use that tool, then you could have one piece where it's just you talking, and then another piece where it's you talking over the resource or something like that, where you can kind of go back and forth with the different formats.
Okay.
Yeah, so with your webcam, there are certain adjustments that you can make that's going to make your video a little bit more polished. So in terms of the lighting and anything that appears behind you. So seeing if you have a space where you can have a blank wall behind you, seeing if you have a space where you're facing the light. Right. So like right now you're sitting in a place where the window is behind you. And so that's creating a little bit of like a bright spot behind you rather than focusing on your face, which is really where students' focus needs to be because you're the one talking to them. So if there are different places in your workspace where you could sit or different ways that you could angle it, or maybe even just looking at the time of day when you create the recording. So like if you're creating your recording in the evening and then the light is not coming through the window, but then instead you have a lamp that illuminates you from the front, that may create the same effect as sitting in a space where you're facing.
Is there some type of lighting that I should get? I'm I have lots of stuff on the walls.
Mhm.
I love my walls. I love looking at all my stuff. Um, so there's not really a space that's blank. The best blank I would get is maybe a door
Well,
that
like
they
even
would
like
see, but it's not conducive to doing my video or working from there, you know.
Well, like even I'm looking at the space that's behind you right now, and so there's the wall hanging blanket, and then there's another picture that's on the wall next to it, and so maybe I would just shift the camera a little bit so it's highlighting just one of those pieces rather than both, something
Okay.
like that. In terms of the kind of lamp that you could get, there's definitely lots of products out there. There's some lamps that are like ring lights, and those
Yes.
are definitely the best in terms of illuminating you the right way. I don't know how much you want to invest in this financially. You may have something already in the house that will get the job done. But basically, you're looking for something that's going to illuminate you from the front.
All right. I'm going to take a look at those ring lights
Yeah,
um, and see, because I don't particularly care for the way it comes out when I'm looking at it. But I don't have, let's see if I take this off. I I don't know if that helps any, you know. I don't think
right.
so.
Yeah, so I mean, part of it is just being aware that it's something that you of what you're striving for in terms of your goal, and then looking for the best options that will get you there. So kind of like that softer light that's going to illuminate you from the front.
I'll check the ring light.
Yeah, yeah, and then being aware of any noise, whether you're expecting a delivery and somebody might be ringing your doorbell, or if there's pets around, or other people that are living with you, letting them know that, hey, for the next half hour,
Right.
I'm going to be working on a video. Don't barge into my office. And then test it out. So get into the program, do a couple test runs before you actually sit down to do the recording that you want to share with your students. So ScreenPal is the tool that we're working with today. So it's fully licensed by Stick. It allows for sign in with Google, where Stick blocks a lot of other sign in with Google options for infosecurity, but ScreenPal has been approved for infosecurity, so you can use the sign in with Google option. I know that I did create an account for you.
And I did sign in, I believe,
Okay, great. Yeah.
if I remember the password, but
So if you use the sign in with Google option, then you'll just be using the same password as you use for all
okay.
the other Stick things because it's going to go through your Google account. So the same thing that you use to sign into
Okay.
Blackboard and email and all of that. So you're going to start with the browser and signing into ScreenPal in the browser. So ScreenPal is interesting in that you're going to be going back and forth between the app and the browser depending on which step of the process that you're in. So you're going to start in the browser, and that's where you're going to sign in. And then when you're in the browser, you're going to launch the recorder, and that's actually going to launch the recorder that is the app. And so if you've never used it before, it's going to prompt you to download it and install it. If you've used it before, it's still best to start from the browser because that's what's going to prompt it to do any updates. So if there's any new features, any new security
Sure.
releases, if you launch it from the app, it's not going to trigger those updates. Whereas if you launch from the browser, those updates will happen. And it might take a minute or two the first time, but that's definitely the best way to go. And then there are some keyboard shortcuts that I will share with you. And so when you're doing your recording, you can just use your mouse to click to start the recording and end the recording or pause the recording. But there's also keyboard shortcuts. So if you're going back and forth quite a bit where you're pausing, resuming, it's going to make you for cleaner video to use those keyboard shortcuts rather than click.
Okay.
And so I'm going to pause here. And this is our first moment to do a little bit of practice. So I'm going to go into my version of ScreenPal and show you the steps that I would take to start creating
Okay.
the recording. And then you can do the same and just do like a test recording and start looking at those keyboard shortcuts. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the link to this video, to these slides, and I'm going to put them in the chat here. So that's the slides in the chat. And because the links that I'm talking about are all in the slide notes. So if you go to the record screen slide, those ScreenPal keyboard shortcuts, that link to those keyboard shortcuts is in the slide note.
Okay.
I'm opening those up as well. So for example, the one that I use the most is just the pause and resume. So depending on whether you're on a Mac or a PC, so for me, it's option P, and I think it's identifying that I'm on a Mac, so it's showing the Mac ones. If you open the same link on
No,
a
I
PC.
would be Alt P.
Yeah,
I'm sure, because
right.
there's another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's going to be Alt P on the PC and then Option P for Mac, and so that's just a nice thing to practice, is using those shortcuts
Sure.
to get going. All right, and so then I'm gonna put the link for the login in the chat as well, and it's just screenpal.com. So when you're here, it's just the login in the upper right. And when you first get to the login page, you can put in your email, but I'm actually going to skip that and I'm going to go right to sign in with Google.
Okay.
And so if you're in a browser where you're logged in with your personal account, you may need to log out, or you may need to use a different browser. So when I click sign in with Google, it's actually showing me two different accounts, because I have a CODL account that Kyle and I both have access to, and then I have my personal.
Yeah, that's what happens to me when I do
Right.
Google.
So,
I have to go. So the stick one comes up, so that'll be
right.
okay.
Yep. So you just want to make sure that whenever you're doing this, that you're selecting your stick one and not like a personal Gmail.
Right.
Because you won't have the same features because your personal one isn't paying for the service. So then I'm going to select my stick email, and it's going to sign me in. And it's taking me to the last place where I was, but over here in the upper right is the create button, and that's where I'm going to then be able to launch the recorder. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pause the recording. And I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so you got as far as creating your short test recording, and there are a lot of tools within ScreenPal that let you enhance the video a little bit. So I think you were seeing some of these tools when you first created the recording, but the one that is used the most often is the cut tool. Sometimes you end up with dead air either at the beginning or the
Right.
end. Sometimes when I record videos, like let's say I'm trying to get to like a 3 or 4 minute video, and I get through like 2 minutes and I feel like it's going really well, and then I completely mess up. Like I say the wrong thing, I get all like tongue
Yeah,
tied. So sometimes what I'll do is rather than scrapping the whole thing, I'll just like without turning off the recorder, I'll just kind of like pause and take a deep breath, and then I'll resume. And then what I do is then I go back into my video and I just cut that chunk out. And it,
oh,
and
okay,
it's
good to know.
yeah, and it becomes like it's a little fiddly finding exactly the point that you want to cut out. Um, if you use the pause feature, it's actually really great because it knows when you paused. And so if it's going really well, you can kind of do a pause just to have that marker. Because
Right,
then if
right.
you need to cut anything, you can cut to the last time that you paused.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, I don't always do that because it's like, you never plan on messing up. But anyway, so the trimming tool or the cutting tool is there. Don't get into like trying to cut out every time you say It's not necessary. Students know you're human, and it's just you're gonna get so bogged down. It's not worth it. But
I
for yeah,
I have to just tell you one little thing. I was at a conference and the initial speaker was an person, but exceptionally. It made it so difficult to follow along because besides walking back and forth across the stage, and I was like, I just wanted to scream. But anyway,
right. So there's probably extreme cases of it, but for the most part, it's not
right.
an issue. Other useful tools that I really like are blur tools and occasional text overlay. So with the blur tool, sometimes if I'm showing something that is actually private, so sometimes I'm showing something that has student data or that has like email addresses that I don't
Okay,
want everybody in the video to be able to see, but I want them to be able to see generally that this is where email addresses would appear. You can use the blur tool so you get the idea of what's there, but you can't actually read the
oh,
text.
that's good to know.
Yeah, so that's a really useful one. Adding text as an overlay is a little bit tricky because of keeping accessibility in mind, right? So like if you're just putting text on slides, just keep it on your slides. But sometimes if
Right.
you're doing like a software demo or something like that, you want some text over.
Truthfully, I'm hoping that by putting the voice and seeing me, it will, I don't, I'm going to say wake them up, because it becomes very frustrating when, oh, well, I didn't know I had to do anything. Well, my course is a very linear course. You click into assignments, you click into the week, it's all there. Just go 1, 2, 3, write down. They're just not paying attention. So I'm hoping by being able to talk to them, they'll, between the text and the visual, they'll pick it up better.
Yeah, and I think just connecting with a human at a human level is really powerful.
Right.
But yeah, so there's probably a lot more tools than you will ever need or use. But knowing that the tools are there so that if you're looking for something, you know where to look.
Hmm.
Like for example, I had a video where my microphone volume was way higher than the volume of others in the video. And so in the recording, if somebody was to listen to the recording, it would come through as like they would have it at a comfortable audio level, but then every time I spoke, it was too loud. So I was able to go into the video, and at least for the chunks where I was speaking for longer duration, I brought that volume level down. It's not a tool that I use all the time, but knowing that it was there
Right.
was really helpful.
Sure.
Um, Other tools that you have, and I think you saw that that when it popped up, you mentioned captions. So there is the option to add captions within ScreenPal. It will do text to speech, speech to text. So basically, it will take the audio and use AI to convert what it perceives as audio into text.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And is
not,
this something I should do on all of my?
it would be ideal, yeah, because
Okay,
um, 80% of people who use captions are not deaf or hard of hearing. So a lot of students use captions because they're studying in a quiet environment, they're studying with family members around, they're English language learners, and having the text as well as the audio is helpful for them for learning vocabulary, for learning comprehension, all of that. So you start with adding the captions, it processes it, kind of converts your speech to text, and then you can go back in and make edits because it's not going to be perfect. And
sure.
some of the mistakes it makes are funny. Some of them can be academically misleading because it misses like not or something, you know, like a critical
Right.
word, and sometimes it just does things that are kind of embarrassing because of how it ends up writing things out, which is not at all what you actually meant to say. So yeah, definitely best practice is to add captions as much as possible. Definitely edit that caption text so that it is as accurate as you can make it.
Okay,
And you do all of that. So you do all of those edits, like all of that trimming, as well as the captions. You do all of that in ScreenPal in the app before the next step, which would be publishing the video back up to the cloud.
okay,
So then once all of that is done, then you use the share button and then you can publish your video. Um, ScreenPal has two really useful places that you can publish to. So you can publish to YouTube, so you can link it to your Stick YouTube account and it'll be, you know, have all the powers that YouTube has.
mm-hmm,
If you do go to YouTube, just one caveat, if you go to YouTube, you're going to do captions on the YouTube side, not in ScreenPal. But if you want to do anything with the Blackboard integration or with quizzing, you do need to publish it to ScreenPal. So today
okay.
I'm focusing on publishing to ScreenPal because I want to show you all of those tools
And
that you
that's all I want to do.
so that's perfect. So kind of if it ever becomes that YouTube is preferable to ScreenPal, know that that option is there. But
Okay,
ScreenPal works great. It hosts your video, and then you have all the powers of quizzing and all of that. And so that brings us to some more practice time. So again, I'm gonna pause the recording, and I'm gonna restart my slideshow and share my screen. And now we're gonna go into quizzing. So again, we have this process where we go back and forth between the browser and the app. So we do the recording, we start it in the browser, we do the recording in the app, we do all of the editing and the captions in the app, then we publish it up to the browser, and the actual work with quizzing all happens in the browser. So these quizzes can be used in a variety of different ways. They're mostly going to be fairly low stakes. They're great for formative assessment, kind of seeing where the students are at as they're watching the video for the first time. They can also be used as a reflection where the students can reflect on the content that you're presenting in the video as they're watching it. You can use it as a way to check that students are understanding what you're presenting. So you're presenting some content and then you ask a question based on the content, kind of check did the things land that you want, the way that you wanted them to land. And it's a great way to increase engagement. So we talked about that 6-minute video length because engagement tends to drop off. By having more interactive content within the video, students are a little bit more engaged, a little bit more involved with the learning process. So in the fall, we had a pilot with the ScreenPal quizzing tool, and we had a faculty member, Melissa Pereira, who teaches in health information systems, who was really active in using the tool. And in the process of using quizzing, she actually asked the students what they thought about quizzing. So this is some of their feedback. So first of
Mm-hmm.
all, it was really promising to see that out of the 18 students that responded to this question of how useful did you find this video with interactive quizzing, the average out of 5 stars was 4.94. So students liked it. They found it to be a good learning tool for them. And then they also provided a little bit of open-ended feedback. So students said, I like the interactive quizzes because it forces you to have to focus and pay attention so that you can really learn what is being talked about. I love the video and multiple choices. There were some I did not know and some that I already knew. So it helps students get at where they may need more practice, where they may need to get more information in some of the, as well as understanding which topics they're already solid in.
So when she says, I love the video and multiple choices, was that you could give them a multiple choice
Yeah,
question?
yep. So I'm going to show you the question types in just a second. But yeah, one of the question types is a multiple choice question where you can indicate a right and a wrong answer, and they select an answer, and then they can see whether they got it right, whether they got it wrong, as well as some feedback that you can give based on which answer choices they selected.
And then does not integrate with the assessment in Blackboard, the testing?
So it doesn't integrate with testing, but it does integrate with the gradebook. So you can actually
Okay.
have them, so if your video has 5 questions and each question has a right and a wrong answer, they can get a score out of 50 in their Blackboard gradebook.
Okay. And then multiple choices, it's not just yes and no or true or false.
Yeah, so there's true false questions, and then there's multiple choice questions, and I think you can have as many answer choices. I forget if there's a limit, but you can have 4 answer choices, 5 answer choices, 6 answer choices.
Oh, that's good. I might try
Yeah,
that with some of the questions that a lot of students were marked wrong on last semester. It's going to be the same test practically. But I could do this to see if that brings up the score for the students.
exactly. Yeah, it helps them reinforce some of the learning.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and then another student said, I enjoy participating in the videos with an interactive quiz because it's not just listening, it actually focusing on the information being given, understanding that's being said, and also remembering it so that I can answer the questions correctly. So it guides them to be more alert to the video
Mm-hmm.
rather than, so being more active, less passive as they watch
Right.
the video. To create the quiz, again, you're starting in the browser, so you're launching that browser, you're finding the video. So again, you create your video first, you publish it, you select your video, and then you go to quizzes, and then that's where you choose to make a new quiz, you choose your video, and then you add your questions. And you can have questions at any point. You can have questions at the beginning, at the end, or at any point along the timeline of the video. So you have 5 different question types. So there's multiple choice and true false, and those are auto graded, and those are the 2 that are going to tie in with Blackboard's gradebook.
Okay.
So those are the ones that are going to be the easiest for you to manage, because once you set them up, you don't need to go back in to grade them or review them. There's also a manually graded short answer format. And then there's 2 different ungraded options. So there's a polling and a rating. So the 2 that I was showing you that were feedback, so the one with the stars, that was the rating option.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, and then the the quotes, I'm actually not sure if that was from short answer or from a poll. I think it might have been from a poll because it was an ungraded
Right.
question. But yeah, so again, it depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for students to reflect, then something like a short answer or poll might be a good tool, but then you're going back into ScreenPal and looking at what the students said. If you're looking for kind of a quick check for understanding, something that has a right and a wrong answer, something that you want to tie into Blackboard's gradebook, that's where you're going to be using the multiple choice or the true false. And all of these do have an option for feedback as well. So with feedback, it's really great because you can have a right or wrong answer, but in the feedback, if they get it wrong, you don't have to say, oh, this answer is wrong. The correct answer is, you can say this answer is wrong. Go back to page 5 of your textbook, or rewatch the video, or you can give them guided feedback that encourages further learning.
Okay.
The one downside right now is that there is no multiple attempts option. It is something that is on their roadmap, so hopefully it'll get released. I don't have an exact timeline on when it would be released, but right now, in terms of these checks for understanding, the students only have one go. So they can watch the video as many times as they want, but future times they just see how they did on the questions the first time. They don't actually get the questions. They don't get to try the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Pedagogically, I would really love to see that multiple attempts come as soon as possible. Other tips are to stack your questions. So you can have questions at any point in time, right? So you might have a 5-minute video, but sometimes it makes sense to ask several questions at the same time. So you have your 5-minute video, the video plays for like 2 minutes, and then you have 3 questions that are all at the same time. And then it plays for another 2 minutes, and then you have another 3 questions. Or you can space them out, but having those grouped questions works well in terms of like the workflow for the students. And then another tool that is separate from quizzing, but just a tool that may be worth having in the back of your mind, is that there is a tool called call to action buttons. And so if you are starting from your video, but then you want to send students to a website, you can actually have a call to action button that pops up that gives students a link. So sometimes, like in the videos that I create, I send them to like a certain web part of the STIC website or something like that, or a resource page, or a Google form or something like that. So probably not going to be your first priority, but just something to keep in mind that it's there and available. So I'm going to go into ScreenPal on my end and just going to walk through the process of creating the quiz, and then you can do it on your end. So when I'm in ScreenPal, so when I first get to ScreenPal, I see all of the videos that I have access to. And I'm actually going to have access to a lot more videos than you, because I have access to all the videos that anybody at STIC creates. So don't feel overwhelmed by everything that you see here. But so when you log into ScreenPal, same way as you would log in to launch the recorder. And then initially you're going to land on videos, and then you want to go to quizzes. So to get started with quizzing, you want to go to quizzes. And then once you're in quizzes, you're going to create a new quiz. So when I go to create a new quiz, then I'm going to select a video. So like, for example, you uploaded the testing video. So I can, in the search, I can put in testing. And so there is, because I have access to all the videos in our system, I can actually see the video that
Mm-hmm.
is uploaded. So there it is. So I could select your video and then click create quiz. So now I have the option to create a quiz with the video that you uploaded. And so then here are my add question options. So I can click to add a question, and then I have my question types. So I have my multiple choice, my true false, my short answer, polling, and rating. So if I select multiple choice, I have the choice at the beginning, at the end, or at a specific time. So I watch the video, I locate where I want to add the question. After I add it, I can also adjust exactly where I want to add it. So for example, if I want to add it 5 seconds in, and then I say what the question is. So what is sociology? And so then I have study, and so kind of as I add more answer options, it's going to give me more rows to add more
Mm-hmm.
answers. Then I can always delete, and then I can select which one is going to be the correct one, and then I can add feedback, and then I have some other options, like I can add none of the above. You can allow multiple answers. So if you have like select all that apply kind of question, right, where there's 4 answer choices and they actually have to select 2 out of 4, you can do that. So if I do that, then I can have 2 correct answer choices, and then I can add feedback, and then it gives me the option to add correct feedback and incorrect feedback. And so the feedback that you put in for a student who answered correctly may be different than what you put in for a student who answered incorrectly. And then I save that. Oh, so now I have my one question, and then I can add additional questions. And then once you have those questions built out, then you have your some settings, and then you have the summary and the individual results. So that's where you would view results more granular. So if you integrate it into Blackboard, you get the score, but if you had like any short answer kind of questions or rating kind of questions, you would go into these results to view those responses. All right, I'm gonna start the recording, start the slideshow, and share my screen. All right, so you made your quiz in the browser. Now you're ready to give it to students. So the one really important thing to get the quiz to work in Blackboard is you do need to select the LMS settings in assignments and settings. So after you build your quiz in ScreenPal, you go to that assignments and settings tab, and so you select LMS. It always defaults to share as a link, but if it's shared as a link, you're not going to see it in Blackboard. So you do need to make sure to select that LMS option. And then when you select the LMS option, you'll be able to link it in Blackboard. To get it into Blackboard, you're going to go into any content area. So it might be your tests area, it might be your welcome to the course, it might be your unit 1. Basically, wherever you see all those buttons that give you build content, assessments, tools, etc. in Blackboard, you can add a ScreenPal quiz. So you're going to go to the build content menu, and on the build content menu, one of the options is ScreenPal LTI 1.3 course content. There are 2 different ScreenPals. Course content is the one that's going to give you all the options, including the Grade Center integration. So that's the one that's going to work the best for you. Then when you select that, if you want If it's a quiz that's going to have grading, you do want to make sure that you enable evaluation. That's what's going to allow for ScreenPal and Blackboard Gradebook to work really well together. So you're going to enable evaluation, and then you're going to give it a points possible. So what ScreenPal is going to do is it's going to make each question 10 points. If you have 10 questions, each question is 10 points, points possible is 100, that divides really nicely. If you have 6 questions and you make points possible 100, Blackboard is just going to do the math conversion for you. But ScreenPal is still going to grade out of 10, but Blackboard is just going to adjust it so that it comes out to be out of 100. So it's up to you. You can make it out of 100, you can make it out of 10, or you can make it out of whatever number of questions that you have so that it matches ScreenPal. And you can always, in calculating your Blackboard final grades, you can always play with it there as well so that the grading works out to the way that you want in your syllabus. So you're going to enable evaluation, and then it's going to take you to the next screen where you're going to select the quiz that you've already created in Blackboard, in ScreenPal. So what that's going to look like, so here I am in Blackboard. So again, any place that has these menus, build content, and then ScreenPal, LTI, course content. So what I selected, and I'm gonna call it testing video. Enable evaluation. It always defaults to no. You want to select yes, so it plays nice with the grade center. Choose your points. Because you're enabling evaluation, you're making it a graded item. You can give it a due date. That's going to help students stay on track. Always a great idea to set due dates on things. And then you're going to click submit. So now it added the link to Blackboard, and your next step is going to be to actually click on the link, and then that's where you're going to select your video. So it's going to pull up a screen of all the various videos and quizzes that I have access to. So conveniently, it does put the most recent ones at the top. So if you just created it, it's going to be really easy to find. So here I see testing video 2, which is the one that you created, and then testing video 1, which is the one that I've started working on. So I'm going to select it. It does give me a few more options again here. So if for whatever reason I don't want to include the captions, usually you're going to want to include them, but if for whatever reason you didn't, you can turn them off here. You could also turn off the controls. I don't really know why you would do that, because then students can't pause the video. You do have the quiz options here again, so you could do the prevent skipping, the hide score results, hide question markers. So I'm going to show the question marker. So I have those options, and then grading. Again, I'm going to auto sync my grades to Gradebook, and then I'm going to select embed quiz. So once I've done that, so it's a two-step process. So I go to build content, I select ScreenPal LTI course content, I select the quiz, and then once it's here, then the next time I click on it, it's going to take me straight into the quiz, and this is exactly the experience that your students are going to have. They're going to click on it, and they're going to see the quiz. So they see the video, they can start playing it.
Hi.
And then here's that little teardrop blue. It looks really small here, but that's where the question is going to come up when they get to it.
Okay.
And for everyone that you have set up to be graded, it is going to make a grade center column for you. So if I go to my grade center, full grade center, and if I go all the way to the right, because I just made it, so it's always going to end up at the end. Here I have that testing video column has already been created for me. None of my students have taken it, so there's no grades. but that's where you're going to see those grades automatically sync as
Right.
your students take it, as long as you're using the auto-graded question types. So the true, false,
Okay.
choice. Um, and that is it.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, we know
So
what I'll be doing tonight.
yeah, so yeah, that's a lot of content. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the recording.